Hi, hello, welcome back. We're here. More Umineko. Yet again. What are we on? 18? 19 maybe? I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. Uh, it's a new day. I'm going to record as much as I can right now, get a nice several episodes in. Never know. Maybe I'll hit the end of episode 1 in this recording session. I'm not quite sure exactly how many episodes I am away. But we've recorded quite a few hours by now. We have to be reaching that point at some time. Um, so yeah, let's see how far we get. Let's go. I'm excited. Let's get into it. There was a knock on the door and Genji-san entered.
奥様、お夕食の準備が整いました。お食事はまたこちらでよろしいですか？
ええ、ここへ運ばせなさい。南條先生はまだ厨房にいるのですか？
はい。次の一手を熟考したいとおっしゃっております。ご安心を。他の使用人たちとご一緒です。
Deliberate his next move.
源氏さんはじい様の相手ができるくらいチェスが強いもんな。
Oh, he's literally playing chess in the kitchen. Duh, I knew that. It's like, what is he thinking about doing? What kind of moves could he be making? It's chess. It's just chess.
南條先生よりも強いらしいぜ。
そうなんだ。昔相手をしてもらったことがあるけど、あれは勝たせてくれたのかな。
マリア、もうすぐ飯だそうだぜ。しかし、よく一日中テレビを見ていて飽きねえな。
いつもテレビいっぱい見てるから平気。
All day. Hasn't even had a passing thought about dead mom.
マリアちゃんはテレビっ子なんだね。
I mean, as far as we can tell. When she's in this mode, she's still just as happy as ever.
食事だから机の上を片付けないとダメだぜ。
You know, we've seen her get so emotional and upset over that flower in the garden that she couldn't find. We've seen her just be completely devastated by it to the point where she stood there all day in the rain and couldn't find it and just was breaking down. And yet, oh, Maria, your mom's dead. Just straight face, just like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, what? The flower was something to just destroy her emotions, and this is... she could hardly care. It's so weird. Earlier, we had torn several pages out of Maria's notebook, and there was now a mess where everyone had been drawing together. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here really can draw. I'd never guessed.
源氏、エヴァさんたちにもせめて食事くらい一緒にしないかとお声をかけなさい。どうせ断るでしょうが。
I'm not sure what they're gonna say.
かしこまりました。
お父様の次はエヴァさんですか。つくづく後ろ宮家の食卓には全員が揃いませんね。
Well, you can't really gather everyone anymore. Or you could say it's a lot easier to gather everyone. There's a lot less people to gather. Natsuhi felt her headaches start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. We haven't heard them talk about her headaches in quite a while. At least since yesterday in game before everything happened. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself. But the guest room was a little farther away. Natsuhi had warned him to avoid being alone whenever possible. And just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Kanon accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door.
エヴァ様、秀吉様、お夕食の準備が整いました。
He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response.
源氏様、これは。
Cannon pointed under the door. A Western envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Cannon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western envelope was one of Kinzo's, and the same kind as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. Ooh.
間違いない。親方様の封筒だ。
Interesting.
あるいは。
Beatrice's? Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read aloud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Yeah. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice.
エヴァ様、エヴァ様、
Oh boy, what's going on?
源氏でございます。いらっしゃいますか。
I'm a little worried.
お返事をお願いいたします。エヴァ様。
What time is it? Is it time for second twilight? But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that it was time to come out and leave the guest be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Ava's name. However, there was no answer. I mean, at a time like this, you'd be worried. Cannon stuck his ear up to the door, held his breath, and listened for any sounds coming from inside.
テレビの音らしきものが。
They did have the television on.
でも気配が感じられません。お部屋は空っぽかも。
Genji took out a handkerchief, and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It was sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Ushirimeya family head's ring.
エヴァ様、エヴァ様、どうかお返事を。もうお部屋にはいらっしゃいませんか。
Oh boy. But there was still no answer. There was a chance that those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. On today, of all days, though? Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out the bundle of keys, which contained the key that would open the guest room.
源氏様。
Cannon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock doors so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any other reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guests hadn't given permission and might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that this knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the western envelopes of the Ushirimeya family head. After last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else...
エヴァ様、申し訳ございません。お部屋を失礼させていただきます。
After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was the sound of the door unlocking. And after slowly turning the knob, he started opening the door. Oh boy. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. Oh, the chain's on the door. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. So it also proved that they were in the room. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV, all of these things made it clear that they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door. But there was no answer.
源氏様いかがしますか
What is happening? What's going on? As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open a door with a chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill had already rushed up their backs. Cannon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone.
私は奥様をお呼びしてくる。カノンのチェーンの切断を。
Okay, we're doing it. We're cutting it.
はい
As Cannon hurried away to get a cutting tool, Genji called him to stop.
待てカノン。厨房に戻り、熊沢と行動するように。
He has to get... They don't have to go in the garden house to get a cutting tool, do they?
断じて一人で行動してはならんぞ。
Or is he just saying, take Kumasawa when you cut the chain?
はい
Yeah, but now you're going to be alone,
か
Genji.
しこまりました
It looked like Cannon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself. But in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Cannon. Something's going on. Something's going on. Ooh. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food on the servant cart. And Nanjo was waiting for Genji, apparently wanting to show him a move he'd finally thought up that might turn the tables on him. But Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong.
おや、どうしましたか、源氏さん。南條先生、申し訳ありませんが、この勝負は一度中断させてください。カノンはチェーンを頼む。
Okay.
熊沢、食事の配膳は一時中断し、
Yeah, stop everything. We gotta take care of this.
私は奥様のところへ行く。南條先生もご一緒に。何かあったんですか?
Bringing along the doctor just in case. Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen.
熊沢さん申し訳ありませんが僕と一緒に来てください
何があったんですか、カノンさん。
Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation, and chased after Cannon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Cannon went to a storage room and looked through the tools packed in toolboxes and hanging all over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain.
何を探してるんですか。私も手伝いますよ。
ドアチェーンを切断するんです
At least they don't have to go outside into the body-filled gardening room to get, like, bolt cutters or
大
something.
きめの番線カッターはどこだっけ
ドアチェーンをどうしてそんなことをするんですか。
エヴァ様たちのお部屋にチェーンが中にいらっしゃるはずなのにお声をかけても返事がないんです
It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent issue.
これなら多分
Cannon took down a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it'd be easier to understand if we said it was shaped like a large pair of pliers. So, was it just bolt cutters? Cannon remembered once being warned that this dangerous tool could easily cut through one of your fingers. Cannon took that and rushed up the stairs. He already knew instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or perhaps it was already...
待ってください、カノンさん。
早く
Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Cannon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked up at the door, he let out an "ah," struck speechless. Oh?
なんですかこれは。
Another. Oh, they're gonna be dead or something. What? If this is just like the outside of the shed of the outside storehouse, there's gonna be more sacrifices. I'm so confused. I thought Second Twilight doesn't necessarily say anything about people dying. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with blood-like paint. However, it would be odd to call this one a magic circle, because unlike what most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. So is these top corners here, are these like how it turns around the side of the wall? Like the wall kind of turns here 90 degrees, and so the blood's kind of following it. Interesting. And you got the door and just a pattern around it. It almost looks like a jail cell or something. These look like bars. But, we'll see. However, those strange characters filling in the gaps, which weren't from the alphabet, were the same kind as the ones that magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Cannon struck speechless wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It was that something like this hadn't been here a short while ago. That's true. It had just gotten put on. First, he had taken a trip back to the kitchen. After that, he had gone to the storage room to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together, and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding. Whoops. Several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave way, and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Cannon surely would have wanted to.
ベアトリーチェ様
Oh.
ベアトリーチェ様の仕業ですよ。恐ろしや恐ろしや。
Man. Cannon gulped, then readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength, managing to cut through the chain far more easily than he had anticipated. The cut chain fell into two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
カノンさん、足元に封筒が。
Oh yeah, we know about that.
しかもこれは親方様のもの。
It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Cannon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. Cannon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears were realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. I mean, they'd probably want to investigate anywhere that has these symbols on him, you know? Just because one of them is connected to a crime scene. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this whole time.
エヴァ様
Okay. Oh. That's not good. Ava was lying face up on the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on. Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Cannon, and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short eek again when she saw Ava like that. That's creepy. Ava's shoes had been the first part of her that Cannon had seen, so the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Ava's head shifted into his line of sight, Cannon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something had been placed. Something was growing there? No. Right in the center of the forehead. The music cut out, and I don't want to get, like, jump scared right now. Was an old-fashioned knife? Okay. This game doesn't seem to, like, show you the murders. Like, it hasn't gotten gruesome yet or gory or anything. It more leaves it up to your imagination, which I definitely don't mind. It's sometimes a really nice way of doing things. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily need that shock value or anything. Like, it's only because of the Maria scene, the creepy smiling Maria, that I'm, like, creeped out by this game now, just because that alone was enough to really, like, get to me when I was recording alone, you know, no one around, lights out. That, like, really freaked me out. So now I'm like on guard all the time about getting freaked out again. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop in the middle of this tense scene. Okay, that or some weapon like it was sticking out. At the base of where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more, and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Ava was dead with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the only mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been some demon.
秀吉様は
Yeah, where's Hideyoshi?
秀吉様
Ava was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. Oh. No? The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep the water from flowing out. I'm liking the music, really. Oh. Oh no! Him too! This is like the first, like, dead body we've seen. The waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open and pointing right at Cannon. Just like Ava with a weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Ava's had been. But the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Oh, man. Both of them. I guess, I mean, I guess if they're dead, the two who are close are torn apart. I really didn't see it as like as a kill, but I guess that's what it says. I mean, that's what it means. Two who are close, they've been torn apart by death. Sure, that works. I can accept that. Just then, they heard Natsuhi's voice coming from the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Oh boy. That's, holy crap, that's all 4 siblings. All 4 siblings are gone. Natsuhi is the only one of the main 8, or, well, I guess Rosa didn't have one, so it was 7. But, like, the brothers and sisters and their in-laws, Natsuhi's the only one left. Oh, we don't know what the letter says yet, but put that on hold for a moment.
まだ読んでおりません。
うかつに触らん方がいいですが、犯人の指紋が残っとるかもしれん。警察に渡した方がいい。
わざわざ手紙を残すくらいです。どうせ指紋など残っていません。
As Natsuhi said that, she picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead. Oh boy.
これはむごいですな。
カノ、シャワーを止めてあげなさい。気の毒にも程があります。
They're gonna have to realize now. I mean, it could not have been like one of the 18, right? I mean, no, the place was locked from the inside, bolted from the inside. I feel like they have to accept now that it's someone else. It's not. You know, so all of them were waiting in the room. Only the servants and Nanjo were outside the room. No, I can't think of how else this could be done. Man. Cannon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast.
南條先
生。わかった。市販は出とらんが、死後硬直も始まっとらん。おそらく殺されてから1時間経ったかどうかというところだろう。しかしこのような柄の短い凶器で頭蓋骨を
Yeah.
考えられん。
Seems a little inhuman, maybe? I mean, they were asking for the next kill to be more supernatural in nature, to make it without a doubt that it was a witch and not one of the 18 that did it. I don't think this is quite there. But if they're talking about how the murder weapon was a little, didn't quite have the build on it to be able to pierce the skull like that, then maybe they'll start to suspect, you know, it wasn't done by ordinary means. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Cannon watched this businesslike treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but then decided it'd be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, so he left it alone. I mean, that could cause a lot of blood to pour all over the place too. You don't need to take him out. I get it more like a respect thing. But a close inspection of the base showed that it didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade-shaped. Yeah, it looks like a spike without a handle. A spike with like a ball on the end. Interesting. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear. Something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Oh, I see, you put the ball kind of in your palm and then you thrust forward. Okay. Rather than a short spear, you might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, after looking at this scene, no further words were needed to describe what sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for. Nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Natsuhi, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with her handkerchief and dashed out from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she'd had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuhi couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. Oh yeah, keep him away. Oh, fucking George. Oh no, I didn't think about that. Oh, George lost Shannon and both his parents. Now he's the worst one off. Oh man. But they could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George, even before he came dashing into the room. Of course you show up, of course. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsuhi, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlor, they felt a sense of foreboding. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Oh, and you know who's in there. Yeah, of course you do. Oh. Yeah, Maria, do you have anything to say? No? Okay. You don't seem surprised, Maria. I don't recall that face from Canon before. Canon didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Ugh. Oh, has he seen his dad yet? Natsuhi touched George's shoulders with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George fell over beside Eva and buried his face into the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway and was covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping without restraint. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
じゃねえか。
Being George is suffering right now, man. Of course, it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is. But to Battler, those left alone by the deaths of others were far more worthy of pity. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's.
バトラー
Huh.
そりゃよ、人はいつか死ぬぜ。人間誰だっていつか死別の悲しみと戦わなきゃならねえ日が来るだろうよ。でもよ、そいつは兄貴にとってはずっと未来の話で、
It should have been.
しかもそいつは一つずつ順番に訪れるべきもんじゃねえかよ。
That's a good point.
むごすぎるぜ。やろうやろう、少しは人の情けってもんがねえのかよ。
Oh, Maria, please don't make this worse right now. What are you gonna say?
バトラ、泣かない泣かない。
Okay. Good start. Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears.
ああ、くそ。もう流さねえぜ。悔し涙も悲しみの涙ももう二度と流さねえぜ。
Not at all?
ああ、
We'll see.
全然ダメだ。
How many people are we down to now? 1, 2, let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're down to 9. That's half the people. Half our starting amount. God damn. It's happening so fast.
爪を食らってるわけだ。主勢一方ってわけだ。そりゃダメだぜ。全然ダメだ。チェス盤がひっくり返っちまうぜ。野郎は俺たち羊が明日まで逃げる手段もなく怯えてるだけだろうと思ってるだろうよ。だからひっくり返すぜ。明日までこの島から逃げられねえのは野郎も同じだ。正面ちびりそうになりながら逃げ隠れするのは俺たちじゃねえ。野郎の方だ。
We're not trapped in here with him, he's trapped in here with us. That kind of thought process? Sure. Go for it, Battler. Let's see. Let's do it.
いや、明日なんか待たねえ。今夜だ。
Tonight.
今夜中にその胸ぐらを掴み上げてやる。
Looking forward to it. Let's fucking do it. Let's go.
とにかくこの部屋は警察が来るまでこのままにして施錠します。
Okay. That seems like an alright stopping point. It's still a little early. We're not quite at 40 minutes yet, but I'm just going to be blowing out a bunch of episodes tonight and then releasing them one day at a time. And anytime we get past like 35 minutes or so, as soon as I reach a stopping point, I'll call it and we'll just move on to the next one. I mean, that had enough going on in it for one episode. Like, Jesus Christ. That's it. We've reached the conditions for second Twilight, I guess. I don't quite understand how those who remain did it. Tear apart the two who are close? Sure. Not only did they already seem like they had the biggest bond, but then you had that one scene, really playing up, how much they love each other and how much they're relying on each other, and they only show their true selves around each other. But this claims that those who remain shall tear them apart. Not getting that. That implies that everyone else somehow did it. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. I won't worry about it too much right now. I'll just keep it in mind for later. But yeah, Hideyoshi and on Eva, rip. I had on Eva is not a bad character, but she got on my nerves plenty just because I feel like a lot of that's kind of the emotions she was supposed to bring up in people. She was, not nice to a lot of people. She was very smug and always, but I can't say she was a bad character. She was fun on the screen. It was fun to watch her just like, her personality come out in full force. It's a shame. I joke around that I hate her just because she's not nice to my best girl Natsuhiro, but she's a lot of fun to watch. And Hideyoshi, the wholesome uncle, was also really cool. So yeah. I want to talk for a second about how this game is going to go, right? We're down to half our cast, and we're not at the end of the first part of 8. What is there some kind of revival going to happen? Like the next hundreds and so hours of this visual novel will not be Beatrice and our remaining 8 characters. Like, there's no way. And there's more people that are going to die, like, over soon, I feel like. The Twilights are moving fairly quickly here. And so we have that resurrection of all the dead souls. Are we going to bring our cast back somehow? We have to. What else are we going to do? People are going to die. There's so much of this novel left. The only thing I can think of is this whole resurrection bit. Like, and then what? We bring them back, and then what's the story from there? I have no idea. Because we're still so early in this. Everything's happening so fast if you think about, like, the pace of the entire novel. Not the pace, the length of the entire novel. So I'll be interested to see if and how the cast makes a return. Oh, okay. I do know, I'm sure we have updates in the characters. Yeah. I'm not going to read those. I'll read those at the start of next episode as a starter. And that'll be a good way to start it. Okay. All right. So, that's that. We have 2 more deaths. Good music this episode. Frantically paced, tense. I loved it. I am loving it. All right. I will see you guys in the next episode. Hope you had fun, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.